Good morning, Earthlings. How are you today? Welcome to First Contact Radio. Alright, let's jump into our cosmic weather for today. Solar wind is blowing at 316.3 kilometers per second. Planetary K-index is at a 0, expected to be no higher than a 3 in the next 24 hours. If we look at our sun in the coronal hole, we could see there is something opening up there. Let's take a closer look at this here. Big object down here, big spot here, revealing itself. Remember, these are areas where wind blows off there a lot quicker, so even though there's not a flare, it would appear that with these sort of coronal holes that the solar wind can pick up and increase coming off of those things. Our chance for flares, M class, is only about a 15% chance, and activity 10% chance in the higher latitudes that you're going to have some sort of geomagnetic storm activity. Scroll back up to the top here, and just a reminder what's coming up this weekend. We've got the supermoon, May 5th and 6th. So that's the weekend. What's going to mean is the moon's going to look pretty darn large. Says the full moon on May 5th and 6th is a perigee moon, as much as 14% bigger and 30% brighter than other full moons of 2012. So, quite fascinating. If you get a chance to check it out this weekend, take some time out, go look at the moon. Alright, and there you have it. Alright, next up, astrologically, we're in the same sun sign, Taurus. So we're dealing with an earth sign of Taurus, a elemental sign of earth, and then we're going to look. And that's consciously and unconsciously, we're in between signs again. We're in between Libra and Scorpio. Libra is a card of balance. Scorpio is a card of death. The time of death, change, challenge. With that, Pluto is the planet that is involved with Scorpio. Pluto is about transformation. So the energies of Scorpio are transformative energies. Sometimes things that are buried deep come to the surface. In the tarot cards, it's a tarot card of death, which is simply a card of transition from one form or phase to another. So we're dealing right now then with the elements of earth for the sun sign, conscious mind, and unconscious, earth and air. Alright, moving along. There's our moon, 96% full. So this weekend we're going to have the full moon. So enjoy. And on the Mayan Oracle, we are at a two-tone day, which means we've made it to the second day of the wave spell. So the tone days and the wave spell position are in synchronicity. Okay, so we got the Daykin for today, which is right in the middle, same as the second position here. That way you can see where we are on this grid as we move along. You got the two warrior guided by the star, so it's the tone middle guided by the one above it. So the two warrior guided by the star. The second tone is called the lunar tone, and then the supporting cast members, you've got the one on the left here, the antipode, which is the opposing force, and then the like-minded energy, which is the blue knight, and these two energies balance out what's in the middle. And then of course you got the hidden power underneath, called the occult power. And occult just means hidden. If you look up the definition of the word occult, it means hidden, that which is hidden. That's all. So if somebody's tried to tell you that occult means something more than that, it doesn't. It just means that which is hidden. The phrase for today is I polarize in order to question stabilizing fearlessness. I seal the output of intelligence with the lunar tone of challenge. I am guided by the power of elegance. On the Gregorian calendar is Friday, May 4th, 2012, and we can look at our other dates here. On the Zolkin, today's the 7 Mulak, and on the Hab, 12 Wo. Alright, so there you have it for today. That's our cosmic weather. Alright, the first story, first bit of information for today. This is AE 9/11 Truth. Haven't done anything with them for a while, so today would be the day. This is the international team speaking out, so you get to hear what people around the world are saying about 9/11. Here we go. Check this out. I think you're going to find this quite interesting.
Hi, I'm Richard Gage, AIA, architect and founder of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. Our organization is dedicated to dispelling myth and disinformation and replacing it with scientific facts and forensic evidence. Educating architects and engineers also, and the public at large, about the explosive controlled demolition of the Twin Towers and Building 7 on 9/11. Our goal is to obtain a true independent investigation, and we're ever grateful for the support of our many dedicated volunteer groups. The translation team is most important in this critical worldwide effort.
Nous sommes l'équipe de traduction pour architectes et ingénieurs pour la vérité sur le 11 septembre.
Og vi lever, bor og arbejder frivilligt i forskellige lande over hele verden.
Wij hebben ons aangesloten bij Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth om onze belangrijke bevindingen te delen met mensen over de hele wereld in zoveel mogelijk talen.
Już 10 lat po zdarzeniu z 11 września niektórzy wciąż nie wiedzą.
Non sanno che nella storia dell'edilizia nessun edificio con infrastrutture in acciaio è mai crollato a causa degli incendi, tranne l'11 settembre, quando questo successe non una, non due, ma 3 volte.
Ja, die meisten Leute wissen nicht, dass an dem Tag noch ein drittes Hochhaus eingestürzt ist.
World Trade Center 7, en skyskrapa på 47 våningar som inte träffades av något plan, föll på under 7 sekunder klockan 20:05 på eftermiddagen den 11 september.
它以自由落体的加速度，沿着阻力最大的路径，齐刷刷地坍塌了。
Muy en el estilo de una demolición controlada típica, que solo es posible con explosivos o incendiarios colocados por expertos.
وبرغم استحالة أن يكون هناك من رأى انهيار المبنى إلا أن الBBC أذاعت النبأ قبل أن يحدث بالفعل ب20 دقيقة.
لقد انهار البرجان التوأمان أيضا. انهيارهما الذي استغرق 12 ثانية قطع طريقه خلال 80,000 طن من الحديد الإنشائي الصلب والسليم.
Die Leute wissen nicht, dass während der Zerstörung tonnenschwere Balken waagerecht mit bis zu 95 km/h aus den Zwillingstürmen geschleudert wurden. Diese landeten bis zu 180 Meter weit in benachbarten Gebäuden.
Ve bu tür hız ve mesafe ancak yüksek basınçlı patlamalarla açıklanabilir.
Yli 100 viranomaista kuuli räjähdyksiä ja näki ikunoissa kans valovälähdyksiä. Ne valovälähdykset oli räjähdyksiä.
Первые респонденты, инженеры-строители и рабочие уборщики, сообщали также, что видели островки застывшей стали и оплавленные балки у подножия башен.
Ten fenomen trwał wiele miesięcy, pomimo że temperatura topienia stali to 1480 stopni, a temperatura, jaką można uzyskać przy spalaniu paliwa lotniczego oraz pożaru biuru, to zaledwie 760.
Veel mensen kennen dit mengsel termiet niet. Dit mengsel bestaat uit ijzeroxide en aluminium in poedervorm en kan gesmolten ijzer produceren met temperaturen boven de 2200 graden Celsius.
E che una forma high-tech di queste polveri altamente sofisticate sono state trovate tra le polveri del World Trade Center da un team di scienziati internazionali. Ora, questo tipo di materiali possono venire prodotti soltanto in laboratori altamente sofisticati, non certo in una grotta in Afghanistan.
De flesta vet inte att NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, som har ansvarat för den tekniska analysen av tvillingtornens kollapser, gav ut en rapport på 10 000 sidor som slutar precis innan kollapsen påbörjas.
Ja, dit rapport beschrijft de ramp tot het moment dat de eerste toren instort, maar er is geen technische analyse van de instorting zelf.
Et le NIST a été forcé de reconnaître plus tard qu'ils étaient incapables de fournir une explication sur l'effondrement total.
NIST no hizo pruebas en buscar explosivos, cuando en realidad una demolición controlada es la hipótesis más probable y no dan a conocer sus datos porque dicen que esto podría poner en peligro la seguridad pública.
ثبت أن التفسير الرسمي مزيف ولا يتوافق مع أبسط قواعد الفيزياء. وعلى العكس من ذلك فإن افتراض الهدم التحكمي يتطابق مع كل الأدلة الجنائية المتوفرة.
Leute auf der ganzen Welt haben Vertrauen zu ihren Architekten und Ingenieuren, wenn es um die Sicherheit der Gebäude geht, worin sie arbeiten und wohnen, weil sie die Experten sind.
Or, nos 1500 architectes et ingénieurs sont d'accord pour dire qu'il est scientifiquement impossible que les 3 bâtiments se soient effondrés de la façon décrite par le gouvernement.
Ja totuuden puolustaminen ja uuden tutkimusvetoomuksen allekirjoittaminen on kova paikka. Siinä voi urakatket ja maine mennä.
Не нужно быть архитектором или инженером, чтобы понять, что официальная версия просто bессмысленна.
Det er derfor vi krever en faktisk uavhengig granskning av destrueringen av de 3 høyhusene den 11. september.
Inilah alasan mengapa kami bergabung dengan arsitek dan insinyur untuk kebenaran 11 September.
Voilà pourquoi nous traduisons notre documentation scientifique en autant de langues que possible, pour que les gens du monde entier puissent enfin savoir.
Now, we know.
This is the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
All right, UFO News time. Thank you very much, Dirk. Okay, first up, we've got... First story is UFO Stalker. This is a good site to be checking out because, as you recall, it has this nice little map here. And you can see all what's going on in the map and the graphics that are here. So we're going to go down, we're going to look at the latest sightings here. Sighting from 5-4, black boomerang UFO with blue-white lights along wings shrouded in mist. That was in Abilene, Texas. And you can just click on here and let's see where we're at here. Alright, here it is. It brings us up to what's going on there, so we can check that out. Alright. And just scroll down, you can see there's a lot of sightings here. You got an orb followed by 3 helicopters. We've got a outside my house in night sky, something moving but descending. We've got a helicopter following a small glowing orb. Passenger plane without wings. I mean, you go on and on. There's tons of sightings here. You can just check on the map. It's a pretty cool location to go. So, alright, moving right along. Next one takes us to UFO sightings. Triangle UFOs buzz over U.S., England, and Australia. The triangle-shaped UFOs just don't seem to go away. Whether they're experimental stealth technology or truly unexplained, unidentified flying objects, reports continue to surface about these aircraft. Alright, and the sightings weren't isolated to a single location. Reports and videos have emerged recently from the United States, the United Kingdom, and Australia. Some of these UFOs may in fact be top secret military aircraft like the ones known to have been developed and tested at the legendary Area 51 base north of Las Vegas. Alright, here's a video of a recent sighting here. Okay, remember this one? This was the one over the wing of the ship. There we go. Now this one is a little different than some of the triangles we've seen, because this usually we see them at nighttime, but here we've got a daytime triangle. The way that these look, you can imagine that there's something between it, but whatever it is, it's cloaked and it cannot be seen. Here's another one. This was, I believe, over Sydney. No, this was not over Sydney. This was, where's this? There's a triangle right there. Okay, now we're all familiar with these. This was in Tennessee. Alright, and then we've got this one here over Sydney. Played this one the other day. Where are we at here? There we go. See right up here? Alright, you can see it's very, very faint out there, but triangle. Alright, so moving right on, next story. Texas UFO Show with guest MUFON Missouri State Director. UFOs in the news tend to be isolated incidents that occur randomly across the country. But this past October, all eyes were on Missouri when mutual UFO incidents reports escalated dramatically. MUFON Missouri State Director Debbie Ziegelmeyer is the guest this evening, Thursday, May 3rd, 2012, on the Texas UFO Show with hosts Steve Hudgens and Fletcher Gray. The Texas UFO Show is flagship web radio for the MUFON Radio Network with 60 minutes of interviews and 30 minutes of guest call-in every Thursday night from 9 to 10:30 p.m. Beyond managing a high reporting UFO state for MUFON and having the most up-to-date information for the last year's report, Ziegelmeyer has the most interesting background. She also sits with MUFON's board of directors and a MUFON Star Team Investigator, part of the specialty trained group where investigators can be on the ground for a site investigation within 24 hours in cases of special interest. Debbie is also the co-founder of the MUFON Dive Team, a specially trained group that can get to the bottom of things where a UFO incident involves a body of water. She also independently investigates with her brother, Chuck Zukowski, cases that include animal mutilations and strange sounds phenomena. So very good. They're both great speakers, so if you get a chance to check it out, please do. I've met both Chuck and Debbie over at Roswell, and lots of great information. So check it out. You'll be glad that you did. Here we got Mexican City UFO sighting caught on camera as bright light shoots from the object. A UFO over Mexico City in the early morning hours before sunrise on Wednesday, May 12th, 2012. The video of the unidentified flying object is particularly short, only 8 seconds long. However, the UFO that was captured on camera behaves in a mysterious way during its short time on video. The video by YouTube user Big Bang Channel begins by showing a single glowing pinpoint of light in the sky and pink skies above Mexico City. In an instant, there are 3 lights in the sky. A split second later, 2 of the lights blink out at the same moment that a beam of light or searchlight shoots from the first glowing orb. The light gradually disappears as well, leaving nothing in the sky except the clouds. Alright, let's check this out. Check this one out. This sounds pretty interesting. Alright, remember, it doesn't last very long, so here we go. Okay, there's the first one. There's another one. Oh yeah, look at that. Boom, and that's interesting. I have not seen something like that before in our sightings. Let's look at that one again. See if I can freeze it at the moment. No. Look at that. Alright, we got the nice light shining from here, and the 2 that were here disappeared. Pretty cool, pretty cool. Alright, Now, in regards to the triangles, just mentioned about Area 51, and here's an article about that. This is actually a short documentary, and it's asking the question, does government, Area 51, does the government have triangular alien vehicles? The short documentary makes a very good case that the government is operating triangular vehicles with alien technology at Area 51. The triangular UFO has been sighted all over the world, and while most of these are conventional craft that have been filmed at odd or head-on angles, there are beyond normal explanation. There is no doubt that these vehicles have been seen in our skies for more than a decade. They defy logic and surpass any current known technology. Alright, and you can see here, we've got a video. Length of the video is, oh, video not found, it says. Disappeared from the time that I put this up. Well, the link's available, so you can go check it out. But, good question. Alright, that's our UFO news for today. Let's jump away to our song, Wake Up. I'll be back momentarily. I've got lots of news, so stay tuned.
What if our government was responsible for some of the greatest crimes against this nation? Would you really want to know? These are big questions, but these questions deserve answers. It's time to demand the truth. People shouldn't be afraid of their governments. Government should be afraid. 9/11 was an inside job. Kennedy was killed by the CIA. Jimmy Carter saw UFO. Answers to secrets you need to know. So wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. The evidence is overwhelming. Step past your fear, take a look. Illuminati lies keep growing, but they're illusion from your eyes. And wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. What would our founding fathers say if they were alive today? Must be turning in their graves. Redcoats are coming, big brothers watching. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. What if I land and two if I see? And I on the opposite shore will be ready to ride and spread the alarm through every Middlesex village and farm. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. When a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Patriots arise. It's time to demand the truth.
Alright, so that first video was pretty good, huh? People all around the world. See, no matter where we go around this planet, people are people. Everyone's the same. They want good things going on. We just have a problem with the governments of the world. But the strange thing is, the people of the world outnumber the governments and the problem makers millions of times over. Millions and millions of times over. The only way that they've gotten control, though, is through dividing and conquering. They've divided people. They've separated people from their common sense. And they continue to push their manipulative agendas through the media, which unfortunately seems to have dropped the ball. Media at one point used to be the gatekeeper who would make sure that these politicians and the corrupt organizations out there would have to answer for what they were doing to keep them on track. But they're not gatekeepers anymore. They're gatekeepers of the lies, basically, is what it is anymore. Lies go on and the media doesn't report it because they're somehow don't think that the people of the world will be able to handle the truthful information. More importantly, to them and to their slave owners, it's not that the people can't handle the information. It's that if people knew the information that was going on, they would step up and stop it. And they want to make sure that they protect their interests and protect the criminals that pay them, because Bill O'Reilly wants to get paid. And if Bill O'Reilly wasn't getting paid by the criminals, who would pay him? So, there's a lot of Bill O'Reillys out there, unfortunately, in the media, and without the criminals, they would not have anyone to pay them, because who would pay them to do news the way that they lie? Who would actually do that except a lying, corrupt news organization? All right, so one day things will change, but people need to step up, because remember, there's more of us, millions and millions more of us than there are of them. We just have to stand up and be brave. Just got to stand up and be brave. All right, our first story here, Ron Paul. Ron Paul delegate strategy is perfectly legitimate. It says here that this is from Tampa, May 3rd. For at least a month, the media have been ignoring compelling evidence that Ron Paul is doing much better in the Republican nomination race than he did in the primary caucus popular votes. In their hurry to write the general election narrative, the media have forgotten to perform their primary function, to report the facts. The facts are that Ron Paul has won at least 2 states and will likely win more. With that, now that Paul's success is impossible to ignore, the media are writing a new narrative. Headlines like Ron Paul's stealth state convention takeover and Ron Paul's people playing mischief with delegates indicate that instead of ignoring Paul's victories, they now seek to imply that there is something sneaky or unfair about them. Some even suggest that his delegate success in 6 states where he did not win the popular vote may even, gasp, undermine democracy. Undermining democracy would be a good thing. If there is anything we have too much of in the 21st century, it's democracy. The United States flourished as a free and prosperous society largely because it was founded as a republic. The reason for the bicameral legislature, the separation of powers, and other so-called checks and balances was to protect us from democracy, which James Madison called the most vile form of government. Based upon a belief that government, even in its best state, is but a necessary evil, the American Republic was built to check the will of the majority whenever it wished to confer more power on the government. That's why there are 2 houses in Congress. In a democracy, there would only be 1. Even after the House passes a law, it then has to pass the Senate, which originally represented the state governments, not the people. The 17th Amendment removed the important check on power of the federal government. Even after passing both houses of Congress, a law has to exercise one of the few powers granted to the legislature of the Constitution. If it does not, it can be struck down regardless of the wishes of the majority. If the people want to give the government a new power, they have to complete an even more difficult constitutional amendment process. Well, that's how it's supposed to work. That we ignore the Constitution and instead function virtually as a pure democracy is why we have a bankrupt government that spends almost $4 trillion a year and regulates everything from food we eat to the amount of water in our toilets. All right, so Ron Paul's doing much better. And again, it all goes back to the mainstream media. Hey, mainstream media, come on, you're out there. You got to hear this. You're not blind. You're not deaf. You have access to the same information that we all do. So how could you go on the news every day, and how could you misrepresent what's going on, and then find out the truth that's out there and still misrepresent it? How could you do that? At one time, do you remember when you went to journalism school? Remember you had some integrity, you were going to change the world with truth? What happened? What happened to your wanting to tell the truth? Questions for all of you who are out there doing journalism that are in the mainstream. You should ask yourselves that. Because maybe you're not doing exactly what you thought you were going to be doing, and maybe you need to do a reality check, look in the mirror and decide that it's time to tell the truth. You're working in an occupation in journalism that is supposed to tell the truth, to keep people informed. Because if you keep telling the lies and mistruths to the people, eventually that all is going to come around full circle and it's going to bite you in the butt. You're not going to be very happy about that, especially when you realize you could have avoided the situation by telling the truth in the first place. All right, this next piece here, this is Ron Paul. He was with Neil Cavuto on Fox News. Here we go.
War over Paul Ryan's budget. Catholic protesters slamming the GOP congressman's plan outside and inside his speech at no less than Georgetown University today. Their huge signs saying, "You there when they crucified the poor? So now when you try to cut, you are worse than Judas." My next guest says this is getting a little incredible and a lot nonsensical. He says start the cutting, no matter the outcry. The GOP Texas congressman and presidential candidate Ron Paul with me now. Congressman, good to have you back.
Thank you. Good to be with you, Neil.
This is what happens, Congressman. Every time someone even decides to address entitlements, let alone, as you pointed out before, and I know you have great respect for Congressman Ryan, he doesn't really cut anything. He, at best, is slowing the growth, in this case, of Medicare and later on with his budget. But if this is the kind of response you get doing that, where are we?
Well, that shows how difficult it's going to be, but there's several problems here. First, when government gets involved, and if you assume government's supposed to do all the care for the poor, you have to admit that it uses force. You remember Mother Teresa wasn't a lobbyist, and when Jesus went on earth, Jesus didn't go to Rome to get the laws changed. But this said, I think there's some flaws in the Republican budget. I did not support it, but I also sympathize with Paul Ryan getting so much grief over even making an attempt. But I think it's the priorities. I pick different priorities. I want to cut this war spending and overseas spending. And actually, even with all my drastic cuts, I want to cut $1 trillion. I protect the poor. And it's not because I think this is the best way to do with it, but in the transition, I believe that it is better to cut overseas spending, deal with the military-industrial complex. So the Republicans set themselves up. They want to cut, but then they find out they cut something that looks like they're cutting the poor, and they won't touch the military budget. I think we have to listen to Eisenhower and deal with the military-industrial complex, work our way out of it, but not endorse the principle that it's the responsibility of the government to promote the care for the poor, because I think that belongs to the church, not the government.
But as you know, Congress, this has come up in a number of debates you've been featured in where Iran all of a sudden starts saber rattling again, or tempting what some of your colleagues say could be a world war. Bad timing for that kind of talk. That is something that the government has a responsibility to address.
Well, I think it's very misleading. That was the same argument they used for Iraq. Iraq was going to attack us. They had planned to attack Iraq since 1998 and finally found the excuse in 2003. So that was just war talk and an excuse. Nobody's going to attack us. Our defense is strong. We have more weapons than everybody else put together. So this idea that we have to do it for our safety, just talking to the military.
So you think they're fear-mongering? So you think they're fear-mongering a bit? Now, people can agree or disagree with that. But in the aggregate sense, let's say you were to address a lot of the military spending. I guess it's $600 billion or so north of that a year. How much would you cut it?
A lot, because we spend well, we spend over $1 trillion when you add everything up. You can cut hundreds of billions of dollars out. Just bring the troops home. Have the troops spend all their money here at home, because we're not providing defense. We're just getting ourselves into trouble. So I would say that is more legitimate than saying, well, we're going to balance the budget on the backs of the poor. Right. Politically, even if you looked at it purely politically, it doesn't make good sense. I do it philosophically, but I don't even endorse those spendings. And I do have some empathy for Paul Ryan, because he is making an attempt, and look at how much grief. I'm complaining about him because he won't cut anything. But I think it's wrong to think that you can do it attacking food stamps and medical care for the poor and not even address the subject of the military-industrial complex and changing our foreign policy, because we spend way too much money in that area.
Right now, it's pretty much you and Mitt Romney. Newt Gingrich has all but stepped out of the race. You're sticking in right through Tampa?
Well, I'm going to stick in to find out how many votes. They're just in the process of counting votes. There's hardly any primaries left, and it sure looks like Mitt is well ahead. But I'd like to see the votes counted.
Well, could you see a scenario,
week,
Congressman, where you could win this?
I mean, theoretically, it's possible. It's not likely. But you know what? Right now, it looks like we might win Iowa. You know, after all these months, you know, just think if I would have won Iowa the night of the straw vote. Just think of the difference it would have been in the campaign.
No, that's a good point.
There's a possibility we're gonna win it, and Minnesota we might win, and Maine we might win, and
maybe
Missouri and Washington.
It might be water under the bridge now, but I mean. You're about 800 delegates behind Mitt Romney. He's a couple of hundred away.
That is true.
So is it really his?
See, I think it's pretty much so, but we have two goals. One is to win the election, and the second is to maximize our delegates with the maximum number of delegates and the excitement of a whole generation of individuals who say that we need to have changes. That is a victory in itself, because right now that is where we're winning the hearts and minds of so many people, and that is probably long-term a lot more important than who's going to be the nominee here in the next 2 months.
Well, you got a lot of people's respect. I know that. Congressman, always good seeing you. Thank you very much.
All right, so, and we know that the delegate count isn't accurate, what they're saying on the mainstream. We can see that, Ron Paul's got a lot more, hundreds of delegates. The one thing I played, it said 380 he had at that point. So Fox News shows 79. Well, how did he lose all those delegates? So they're underplaying Ron Paul, they're overplaying Mitt Romney. It's no surprise. Okay. Homeland Security, this comes to us from E-News. Homeland Security-funded study playing down public's concern over radioactive fallout with huge economic benefits. We're not trying to bamboozle the public, they say. All right, a team of researchers recently completed a Department of Homeland Security-funded study that assesses the regional economic impacts of a hypothetical catastrophic event like radiological, let's see, is that the right place? Yeah, like a radiological attack or dirty bomb attack on Los Angeles financial district compared to natural disaster like an earthquake, such as an attack at the potential to cause radioactive fallout across the city and surrounding areas, thereby causing mass exodus and damage to commerce. Fears concerning a dampening effect of the economy, according to Adam Rose, who studied the major economic impact of the disaster, which would mean ripple effects at cost, increase the impact demand for goods, prices, and quantities of products. The public fears the potential to cost up to 15 times more of the original wreckage and cleanup. All right. Basically, all right, I'm leaving this up here for you to read. You see that they're not being honest with the public about what's going on with the radioactivity. Now, here's an article that was connected. I was starting to read some of that. This is, can we cope with a terror attack in Los Angeles? On March 11th, 2011, a devastating earthquake off the coast of Tohoku triggered massive tsunami waves that claimed the lives of at least 15,854 people. More than 3,155 people are still missing. The World Bank has estimated that the economic cost of the tragedy is about $235 billion, making it single most expensive natural disaster in the world history. It was a disaster of epic proportions, the greatest earthquake to ever have hit Japan, and one of the strongest since record-keeping began in the 1900s. All right, so goes on to here talking about, let's see here. I'll just continue on. So strong was the earthquake that it physically changed Japan's landscape, bringing it 7 to 9 feet closer to North America and shifting the Earth's axis everywhere from 10 to 25 centimeters. It also caused several nuclear meltdowns at 3 reactors in Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant complex. An aftershock several days later caused the Ongawa nuclear power plant to lose 3 of 4 external power lines and impacted cooling functions, leading to a spill of couple liters of radioactive water. In the aftermath, the international media focused ostensively on the nuclear accidents, even though it was the tsunami the more strongly impacted and continues to affect both people and infrastructure in Japan. Nuclear accidents generated considerable international anxiety. So, the question here, though, is, where is it at here? A team of researchers recently completed a Department of Homeland Security-funded study that assesses the regional economic impacts of a hypothetical catastrophic event like radiological dispersal device, otherwise known as RDD attack, or a dirty bomb attack on Los Angeles financial district, compared to a natural disaster like an earthquake. Such an attack has the potential to cause radioactive fallout across the city and surrounding areas, thereby causing a mass exodus and significant damage to commerce. After New York, Los Angeles is the second most populous city in the United States. It is no great surprise, therefore, that the city has long been the target of a terror organization such as Al-Qaeda. All right, now we're going to change this. We're going to add something here. Remember, Al-Qaeda, when you hear Al-Qaeda, CIA database, so we're going to replace Al-Qaeda with CIA database. So it's no great surprise, therefore, that the city, Los Angeles, has long been a top target for terror organizations such as the CIA database. So, I think that just kind of says enough, doesn't it? Just every time you hear Al-Qaeda, substitute it for CIA database, which is what it is. It's a database of terrorists that the CIA trained. All you got to do is go look it up. Don't take my word for it. Look up Al-Qaeda. Do your research. Don't take the answer that the mainstream media gives you, because they're not going to be honest. All right, here's another one of Mr. Shuck and Jive himself. Obama signs executive order declaring international law for the United States. On May 1st, 2012, the glorious leader, Premier Barack Obama, a.k.a. Barry Soetoro, a.k.a. Barry the Rat, signed yet another executive order promoting international regulatory cooperation. This dictate is designed to standardize regulations between the United States and its so-called trading partners. What is a regulation? A law. So what is actually being attempted here is a standardization of international law. It is an absolute violation of the Constitution for the United States to legislate our laws outside the borders. Considering the many international security agreements the traders occupying our highest seats of power have entered into, the latest executive order can absolutely be used to institute gun confiscation laws and regulations without any consent by our Congress or the judicial. And these foreign laws are brought to the United States under the various security agreements. Foreign troops will be brought in to enforce the foreign laws upon the people of the United States. Again, why is it important that this man who is in office isn't an American citizen? Why is this important? Because look what he's signing. Right now, as we speak, there are Russian troops on American soil training. As we speak, they are running martial law drills in Minnesota. They are preparing for some sort of martial law of a limited basis in Chicago. This is not an exercise, my friends. This is live. This is happening right now. We have a president in office who shouldn't be there, and every day that he's not there, that he's there, he does more to damage this country. And yet, Americans still stand by saying, oh, the birth certificate was real. Oh, quit asking him these questions. They're silly questions. They're not silly questions. We have a man in office who doesn't deserve to be there, a man in office who does not have the ideals of the United States in mind. We need to remove him from office. Now, are we going to actually get him out of office before this term? No. But can we keep him out next term? If people really pay attention to what's going on, yes. But if people don't care, well, then we'll have another 4 more years with this guy who's going to sign more laws and regulations. And up to this point, think of all the martial laws he's put in place. There's a concern that if he gets power the second time, all of these things he's put in place, he's actually going to execute. So we need to really pay attention, folks. Really need to pay attention. Pass this around. You can go ahead and there's a thing here to send it out to Facebook. Put it on your Facebook page. Let people know what's going on. It's all important. All right, moving right along. Next story. This is RT Alana. Google has been lying for years. Listen to this.
A lot of new revelations this week over Google's Wi-Fi data collection through its Street View program. A few weeks ago, the FCC released a heavily redacted report concluding that Google could not be held liable for wiretapping, slapping them with a measly $25,000 fine. Then last weekend, Google released an unredacted version of this report to the LA Times, which is where it came out that an engineer by the name of Marius Milner had in fact crafted the Street View software to collect so-called payload data. Now, payload data includes telephone numbers, URLs, passwords, emails, text messages, medical records, video and audio files sent over open Wi-Fi networks. It also turns out that Milner had told several colleagues, including a senior manager, about the capabilities, and that was way back in 2007 and 2008. So that contradicts the long-held claim by Google that the data collection had been an accident. Now, aside from asking whether this means that new investigations should be launched, why didn't the public initially get to see the full report? Here to discuss it with me is Christopher Segoyan, privacy expert at the Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research. First, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Can you clear it up for me in terms of why exactly it is the report wasn't initially released without all these black chunks blocked out on it? You know, you wrote a piece about this saying that the FCC deserves to be grilled by Congress because they're the ones that released this report, but now they're claiming from their spokespeople that it was because Google didn't want them to put this stuff in because it was sensitive information for their business.
Right, so Google asked the FCC, please keep these details under wraps. The FCC had asked Google in the first place to provide it with the information, and Google had sort of said, we'll give you the details, but keep them to yourself. What the FCC could have done is waited till they had Google's permission to release the report and then released everything at once. Instead, they sort of released the report in two whacks. First, the heavily redacted report. You got a huge amount of press focusing on the sort of $25,000 fine and the fact that Google's engineer pled the fifth. And then much less press afterwards once the full context was revealed.
But the full report was revealed by Google, right?
Google released the full report this weekend, and then the FCC posted also the full report on its website on Monday. This allows the FCC to say, well, look, we eventually posted the full report, but clearly, the goal here was to have the press focus on these sort of silly details rather than focusing on the fact that Google had been lying to us for several years.
So by now, yeah, everyone's over it. And so, but in that sense, who's really the bad guy? Is it Google or is it the FCC in terms of wanting to keep this information, I guess you could say, away from the public entirely?
I mean, Google has been lying to the public for several years, and not only to the public, but to regulators in several countries. One of the reasons why regulators in many other countries wrapped up their investigations as quickly as they did is because Google assured them, one, that it was a mistake, and two, that it hadn't used any of the data. Now, it turns out they haven't used the data, but the mistake part is seeming a little bit fishy now. So those folks are really upset, and I think the FCC needs to be sort of held to account. They are one of our privacy regulators, particularly for things that involve sort of the airwaves, the telephone companies, and anything that's being transmitted or received. The FCC is the lead enforcer on the beat, and if they are not putting the consumer's interests first, then we're sort of hosed.
So do you think that they just went easy on Google, or are there some type of legal constraints where they can't necessarily hold them criminally liable, and so they just decided that, well, that's it, there's nothing we can do about it?
I mean, I think it's important to note that the $25,000 fine is not a fine for the Wi-Fi sniffing or for the data collection. The fine is because Google stalled during the investigation and wouldn't give them documents, wouldn't provide engineers to the investigators. The FCC basically said we don't have the authority to go after Google for the actual Wi-Fi sniffing activities. I think that's problematic. If the FCC doesn't have the authority, then someone needs to be given the authority.
If the FCC doesn't have that authority, then who does? Because the FCC has done an investigation, the FTC did an investigation, the Department of Justice did an investigation, and they all came to the same conclusion. So, I mean, somebody out there has got to be able to actually hold Google accountable.
Well, so I worked for the FTC for a year. Their enforcement power is very limited. It's based on deception and unfairness. And so Google didn't lie on its website about the Wi-Fi collection because it wasn't telling anyone that it was doing the Wi-Fi collection. And because Google didn't use any of the data, there's no risk of identity theft, so the FTC couldn't really do anything. I think DOJ is by far the best agency. But DOJ is also the agency that's like looking through all of our personal files with the assistance of the telcos. I don't think DOJ is really going to go and want to set a precedent saying, no, you can't look through all this information. So really, we have one agency that's supposed to be protecting us that is in fact violating our privacy, and then another one that's asleep on the job, and a third one without any authority. I mean, we're really, out of good options here.
Well, it sounds like we're screwed. You don't make it sound all that good. But is there at least some hope, because of course we saw a lot of outrage about this in Europe, right? You mentioned a lot of and I know that Britain now and Germany, as well as one other country out there, they've even come out and said that maybe they will reopen their investigations now that this full FCC report has come out, now that they knew that this engineer had created this software and had told other people about it at the company. So, if they do it, could there be enough public pressure, or how do you see that playing out? So
the British privacy authorities are not the best out there. They're probably, in fact, the worst in Europe. However, things have changed in the UK, particularly with regard to the Murdoch hacking scandal, in which also a company sort of covered up its crimes. There is now sort of there's a desire on the part of politicians to go after companies that lie and companies that violate people's privacy. So we may see sort of some politically motivated reopening of the investigation in the UK, whereas in Germany, the authorities really do take privacy seriously, and I think they're really pissed off that they've been lied to and are probably going to throw the book at Google.
And whereas here we have lawmakers that are trying to pass bills like CISPA that just make our privacy something that was a relic of the past, right, and shredded into a million little pieces. But let me ask you one more thing, too, because we spoke about this earlier this week, right on the heels of last weekend's big parties and celebrations here in Washington, D.C., the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Google hosted a party. Eric Schmidt was all over the place. Do you think that any of this has to do with a closer, more cozy relationship that Google now has with Washington?
And Google is now spending more money on lobbyists than Verizon. Right? Traditionally, the telco companies have been one of the bigger players in town, and Google realizes that, if they're going to be in the business of violating people's privacy, if they want to be protected from the consequences of that, they're going to need to spend some money, and they've started to actually spend that money. They have a former member of Congress as their head of their D.C. office. They're learning to play the Washington ball game. Do I think that's right? No, but that's how business works here.
Well, yeah, they're definitely getting into the game. All right, Chris. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I guess we'll wait and see if maybe Congress says somebody should launch a new investigation or something, or if Google's just going to get let off the hook. Thanks.
All right. Now, if you remember last year when the Bilderberg was going on and we had footage of that, remember we saw Eric Schmidt out there with all the Bilderbergers? So let's keep our eye open, see if we see him or any Google reps that are going to be in Chicago this month. See what's going on there, how they're getting themselves involved in such matters. But we need to pay attention. I know I say it all the time, and it's not like a casual, we just need to pay attention thought. It's we need to pay attention. Every day there's stuff going on, and if we're not paying attention, we may be getting lied to. And it seems that the powers that be want to lie more than they want to tell the truth, unfortunately. Don't know how we got to this point in history. Apparently this is the way it is supposed to be, though, and this is an opportunity for all the good people of planet Earth to step up against the lies. Hopefully you haven't been conditioned so much to believe the lies that you want to side with the liars. This is a chance, folks, to step up against the liars and to once and for all bring truth to the forefront. All right, this next story here comes to us from Beacon Equity Research. We are preparing for a massive civil war, says DHS informant. In a riveting interview with True News Radio Wednesday, private investigator Doug Hagman said high-level, reliable sources told him the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, DHS, is preparing for massive civil war in America. Folks, we're getting ready for one massive economic collapse, Hagman told True News' Rick Wiles. We have problems. The federal government is preparing for civil uprising, he added. So every time you hear about troop movements, every time you hear about movements or military equipment, the militarization of the police, the buying of ammunition, all this, they, DHS, are preparing for a massive uprising. Hagman goes on to say that the sources tell him the concerns of the DHS stem from a collapse of the U.S. dollar and the hyperinflation. A collapse in the value of the world's primary reserve currency implies to a nation of 311 million Americans who, for a significant portion of the population, is armed. So, again, this is what's going on out there. Continuing on with this, yes, this is InfoWars, Paul Joseph Watson. Yes, the re-education camp manual does apply domestically to U.S. citizens. Now, there was a leaked Army document, outlines a plan for re-education. There's a link to this here. But just to reiterate, a shocking U.S. Army manual that describes how political activists in prison camps will be indoctrinated by specially assigned psychological operations officers contains numerous clear references to the fact that the policies do apply domestically to U.S. citizens. Despite the fact that the manual is well over 300 pages long and would take hours to read properly, within minutes of posting our story yesterday, a minority of commentators were claiming that the policies outlined in the document only pertain to foreign combat operations and did not apply domestically to U.S. citizens. This is similar to the denial witnessed prior to the passage of the NDAA, when some argue that the indefinite detention provisions do not apply to American citizens, despite numerous legal analysts asserting they did, and President Obama himself acknowledged they did when he signed the bill. There's more information on this. We have to move on. Army orders $266 million worth of ammo amid re-education camp claims and martial law drills in the streets of America. Now, are you seeing something build up here? Okay, we have a DHS informant talking about martial law, Civil War uprising. Then we have weapons being purchased, ammo being purchased, military regulations being put in place, or re-education manual. Are you seeing the pattern here, friends? This is by Alex Thomas, the Intel Hub. ATK, the company now infamous for supplying upwards of 750 million rounds of 40 caliber hollow point ammunition to the Department of Homeland Security, has just secured a $266 million contract to supply ammunition to the U.S. Army. Allied Tech Systems Incorporated has entered into an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract worth $266 million with the U.S. Army. Per the contract, the company will supply small caliber ammunition, including 5 56 millimeter, 7.62 millimeter, and 50 caliber cartridges. This ammunition will be manufactured in the Alliant Lake City Army Manufacturer in Independence, Missouri. The U.S. Army and company have jointly invested $276 million in the modernization of the facility. As a result, the company has already been able to scale up the new 5.56 millimeter cartridge production under the enhanced performance round known as the U.S. Defense. Well, it says, well, it's much less startling than the domestic agency ordering millions of rounds of hollow point ammo. The fact that in 2008 the Pentagon announced plans to deploy 20,000 strong internal military force inside the continent of the United States to be ready by 2011 makes this recent order worthy of at least discussion. Alright, and along the same lines, in Chicago, military helicopters continue to fly over Chicago as security costs top $65 million. An ever-increasing police state and military presence during such events as the upcoming NATO summit in Chicago sets the precedence for troops to regularly police civilian population in the near future. The following tip was submitted via tips@intelhub.com. I saw these 3 helicopters March 29, 2012. I live in southwestern suburbs of Chicago. So far, that's been the only group of 3 I've seen, but just a couple of days ago, very early in May, I saw a Chinook. Well, I hear helicopters all the time, but I only happen to be outside or have a view of them from window a fraction of the time. When I'm at home and actually paying attention, I hear several helicopters an hour. Never before 2012 were there military helicopters around here on a daily basis. Again, the signs are there. They're buying bullets. They're having the security. I mean, it's like the leaders of the world have completely lost their common sense. They no longer care about the people. They're going out with such security. Why are they going out with such security? Think about it. It's because the people know that they are corrupt. The people know that the laws and the restrictions they're putting on them are horrendous, and therefore they know that the people are going to speak out against them. So in order to protect themselves, these corrupt individuals that are part of the governments and the world governments, they hire corrupt police forces or police officers that really don't care about what's going on in the world, so they don't understand how they're being used as pawns, and they use them to protect their corporate and their corrupt interests. And then the people go to, protest about them, and then there's a scuffle. Well, it's happening more and more and more. Are you seeing the same things I sing, or is this just me? because I'm seeing an escalation of ideas all pointing towards the same conclusion. In 2012, well, the year's moving right along. So since a lot of these things are talked about and big changes in 2012, we only have about 7 months left. It's not a lot of time. Not a lot of time, so we better pay attention. You better get off your couch. If you're on your couch and you're not paying attention to the world, you better pay attention. Talk to people that are, because stuff's going on that you really need to be aware of. And for those that are paying attention, good job. Keep paying attention. Keep waking up your friends. I know they're going to be a little bit, pain in the butt about it when you tell them, but keep telling them, because eventually you'll be glad when they wake up, and they'll be glad that they woke up. All right? All right, very last thing here. Let's check weather. This is Dutch Since.
Dutch Sense here. 3:35 a.m. Central Time on Friday, May 4th, 2012. And we're going into another weekend of severe weather, guys. I just wanted to show you what's going on, let you know that the Midwest going into the east, also the south here, still under the gun. Let's go ahead and turn on storm tracking and National Weather Service alerts. Now you can see storm tracking is showing hail and damaging winds throughout Kansas, throughout North Missouri, also throughout central Illinois, just ending at Chicago, then continuing up through Michigan and off to the East Coast, going over Boston and further north. Now also over Kentucky, West Virginia, and south right west of Tampa, coming up to the Gulf Coast. And in the northwest, or the west, depending on how you look at this, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, possibly even Montana throughout the day today, also going to be seeing that damaging winds, hail, and possible tornadoes develop anywhere from south of South Dakota all the way down here into the south central Midwest. Now let me turn off the storm tracking and National Weather Service alerts and just give you an idea of how intense these storms are. Okay, here's the color code down here in the lower left-hand corner. Anything in the white in the center of these storms is most likely hail, and of course these are damaging winds and strong south thunderstorms when you get up into the pinks and purples. So when you see this, you can see just a huge line of storms going all the way to the East Coast, and then further down here at Kentucky going up into Ohio. But I want to show that it's been going extremely fast, and to show that to you a little better, we can look at College of DuPage here. And let me just speed this up slightly. There we go. And just look at the timestamp down below. It's going across pretty much the whole state, half the state of Kansas, in about an hour and a half. And for those of you who've driven across Kansas, you know how long it takes. It takes roughly about 5 hours to cross the state of Kansas. So if it's going across half the state of Kansas in an hour and a half, it's going roughly 100 miles an hour. And it's going pretty quick. It's heading right south of Kansas City. You can see this circle here indicates, this little hole indicates where Kansas City NEXRAD is. It's going to go south of there and across Missouri. It's made a eastward track now. Let's get back over to IntelliCast. Turn on Storm Track. You can see which way it's going. So that pretty much puts Jefferson City and possibly even St. Louis in the line of this storm. It most likely will go over Jeff City. It just depends on will it break and go north, or will it continue on south. We'll have to wait and see. So if you're from Missouri, just be aware there's a really strong storm heading our way throughout central Missouri. Now the amount of frequency put into this storm is just absolutely amazing. It's been 2.5, 3 days of scalar square, sawtooth sweeps. I'm not even going to go into it. Just, you guys, if you want to go look at it, go onto my website and see all those shots. But overall, really strong storms. Going to carry on into the weekend, folks, unfortunately. This storm up here to the northwest is going to pull up more from the south. It's already forming down here over South Texas. So if you live in Texas, be aware. It's also going to pull up near Dallas, come up here into Oklahoma, Arkansas, at some point in the next 24 to 48 hours. Hang in there, folks.
All right, so there you go. So be safe if you're in those areas, and as you recall, all those areas where it shows that there's big storm activity are areas that Dutch pointed out, the scalar squares, the circles, the different high frequency patterns that come from HARP or some sort of frequency generator. Anyway, there you go. Be safe with that. Now, Let's close things out with our meditation. And I know there's a lot of craziness in the world, right? We talk about all the craziness, you hear about the UFO stories, but we are not without ability to do something. Okay? We're not. We have the ability, energetically, to make changes. That's what the masters of this planet have come to teach us. They taught us and told us that during these times of change, we needed to regulate our thoughts, because our thoughts would manifest in the ways that we may or may not want them to. So we want to make sure we're regulating our thoughts so that we manifest what we want and do not manifest what we do not want. Now, during these times, one of the things we certainly don't want is fear. But fear is the thing that's pumped out there. It's this war on terror, this war on fear. So what we need to do is we need to dissipate the fear that's being put out. It's being put out towards all the people of the world from the powers that be, unfortunately. And, you know, we need to counteract that. So let's make that our focus of this meditation as we go into the weekend. All right. I want you to imagine you're walking down a path and it's nighttime. And you're walking through a forest. And as you walk through the forest at night, through the dark forest, you hear the sounds, and you feel the energies, and you feel that there is fear all around. And you realize the only reason there is fear is because it is dark, and you can't see. So in the midst of all of this, you stop and close your eyes. And in closing your eyes and turning your attention away from the outside world, going to the inside world, you find that the fear is gone. For there is no fear deep down. And you realize that the fear comes from the outside. And so by going into that place inside where you feel love, go to that heart chakra where there's love, just allow that love to grow. Imagine the color green from your heart chakra growing, stronger, filling your entire being. And as it does, imagine this overflowing. And pretty soon the whole area where you are becomes filled with love. And as you open your eyes, you realize that the fear is gone. You realize that the fear dissipated the love. You realize that the fear was a false expectation that appeared real. And that love changed that fear into something you could understand. And in understanding the problem, you realize that the fear is only going out there by those who are still caught up in their childlike ways. And we realize the childlike nature of the governments of the world. They're like small children throwing temper tantrums. And in their temper tantrums, they're throwing weapons at each other and doing things that are completely harmful. But with love, we dissipate all of those. With love, we move past all of those fears and those warmonger ways. With love, we know that we can change the world for the better. And we can change each and every one of us for the better. So let's just think of love. Just think of love. And this weekend, just keep love at the forefront of your thoughts. And as you go into different scenarios, as you visit friends and travel through life, just imagine taking a moment to send out love wherever you are. Doesn't have to be in a verbal, loud way. It can just be internally, just thinking of the idea. When you walk into the store, imagine sending out love. When you go to the gas station, imagine dropping some love. Just like Johnny Appleseed, dropping seeds of love wherever you go. See what happens. Let's make this a weekend of planting seeds of love and see what that might do to dissipate the fears. around us. Holding that idea of love in your heart, let's bring our energy and attention back to the present moment on the count of 3. 3, coming back to the present moment filled with confidence. 2, coming back to the present moment filled with faith. And 1, coming back to the present moment happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. And there you have it, my friends. We've made it through another week. The weekend is upon us. Enjoy. Go out there, plant some seeds of love, see what happens. It'll make a big difference. It really will. People change when love is brought into the mix. It changes the fear into something that people can understand. And once they understand the fear, they realize fear really wasn't there at all. It was just an illusion. So let us all step past these illusions of fear into the world of love. That is our true destiny. I'll be back next week with more news and information. Have a great weekend. Talk to you soon. Peace. I'm out of here.